It's like when I teach a class.
All right, you are live.
It's like when I teach a class, like the first
You're
day,
live.
sometimes
Good
it's
to go.
like silent.
We're online. I don't know whose idea it was to give me this. Good evening, everyone. It is 5:15. I'll call the May 22nd, 2025 meeting of the City of Bangor Board of Appeals to order. Let's start off. First time on the agenda is introductions. Why don't we start with Don?
Don McCann.
Rachel Thompson.
Robin Perkins.
Robert Ballingo.
Ed Gould, I'm the board chair.
I'm Jordan LaBeouf.
Thank you, everybody. Second item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the January 7th, 2025 Board of Appeals meeting, which was in our packet. I hope everybody's had a chance to take a look at them. Would anyone like to make, before I do that, I have to note, Don, you're our associate member today. We have a full slate of full board members, so you may participate but not vote.
Right.
Thank you. So I will ask for a motion regarding approval of the minutes of the January 7th, 2025 meeting.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
And a second. Any comments, questions, amendments to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye,
Aye.
and it is unanimous. Item number 3 is public.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go
Sorry.
ahead, Dave.
If they say aye and raise their hands, the video isn't able to pick all that up. So
Okay.
just make sure if you're gonna do a roll call vote, and I don't know if it's necessary, but
Yeah.
that raising the hands doesn't always work.
Okay.
Video wise.
Thank you. That's why I asked for the oral too, but that probably just
And they-
confused things. Well, I'll stick to one.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave. Item number 3 is public hearing on an appeal of a code enforcement officer's notice of violation. The property is 198 Broadway, and the applicant is Stephen Farren. Mr. Farren, if you would like to present your appeal.
Sure. So in December of 2024, my property on Broadway suffered damage during a windstorm. The lower roof on a portion of the property was damaged by a large tree which fell on the property. An assessment of damage was completed by National General Insurance, who employed an engineering firm, Keystone Experts and Engineers, to assess the slate roof, since their appraiser was not an expert in such a roof. The engineering firm came to the conclusion that the roof had surpassed its useful life and repair would not be possible. In January of 2025, I received an email from United Insurance that the entire roof would need to be replaced before the next renewal cycle or coverage would be denied. That formal letter is included with the appeal application. As stated to the HPC and the appeals board, both of which denied replacement but instead ordered the roof to be repaired, the current state of the roof was beyond repair. It had deteriorated to a point where repair does not make sense. Through countless efforts, no company would guarantee their work for any period of time, provide an estimate, or provide a timeline for work to be started or completed. A Massachusetts-based company provided an evaluation and also determined the roof had surpassed its useful life. Due to their demand as one of the only companies qualified to do such work, it would be late 2026 before work could begin. Their report was included with the appeal application. In order to protect my property from any further damage, the decision was made to replace my aging roof with the GAP slate line shingle. On Friday, March 21st, 2026, Ware Butler delivered supplies to begin the roof. During the time of 7 to 7:20 a.m., a delivery was dropped at the wrong address in our neighbor's driveway. At exactly 10:03 a.m., I received a phone call from Brenda Hanscom-Bellotta questioning whether a roof was going to be installed on my property. She stated that 3 city council members witnessed the delivery and contacted the city planning board and legal department to report the violation. I was truthful with Brenda, as we have a good working relationship. She informed me that I would receive a violation and that she was very sympathetic to the situation. On Tuesday, March 25th, Smith Builders began setting up staging and equipment to begin roof replacement. On Wednesday, March 26th, I was informed by Smith Builders that code enforcement arrived on the property to issue a violation. Bangor Daily News was noticed on the property taking photos of the property's garage after being contacted by the City of Bangor about the violation. This photo was placed on the front page of Bangor Daily News. On Thursday, March 27th, Smith Builders began installing new shingles on the back garage of the property. after the violation was issued. On Wednesday, April 2nd, Bangor Daily News published the article. The article was met by unfounded support from my neighbors and fellow Bangor residents. On Wednesday, April 9th, the roof was completed at my property. It is now evident that Whitecamp's presentation was deceptive and completely inaccurate. The HPC member made a false evaluation of roof condition of 198 Broadway based not on actual knowledge or examination of the roof, but simply influencing his committee members based on a 3x5 photo in order to provide job security to himself and his partners, ultimately attempting to stop any homeowner from replacing a decaying roof with products that advanced with new technology. It is no coincidence that in 3 years as a committee member, he chose to have his company speak against asphalt roofs or any material that isn't slate at the same hearing where the first application for approval was sought. He was untruthful to this committee along with the HPC. The HPC was intended to preserve and provide guidance to owners of historic homes. The original intentions upon its establishment in 1971 have clearly failed. HPC has failed in its efforts to protect properties, allowing the majority of surrounding homes and those within other historic districts to be divided up into multifamily homes and rooming houses, approving wooden fire escapes to be installed on numerous Broadway homes while denying the demolition of a garage the city deemed unsafe. Broadway, also known as Route 15, is now more so a right-of-way versus a historic neighborhood. HPC violations are rampant here, varying from asphalt roofs, vinyl windows, makeshift exterior stairs and decks to accommodate single-family houses being demoted to apartment buildings, their satellite dishes, and dilapidated and neglected exteriors. This neighborhood is not the neighborhood it was when the committee was founded. It's not the neighborhood it was when I purchased our home 8 years ago. Newer, better technology exists and must be adopted in order to protect these homes from further irreparable damage, inevitably leading to complete loss. The majority of properties' roofs are beyond repair and must be replaced. If a reasonable, cost-effective solution is not adopted, these properties will continue to fall into disrepair to a point where the cost to repair is far greater than the value of the home. In many cases, that time is now. The HPC needs oversight from city officials, providing them with actual data so they can be unbiased, impartial, and base decisions solely on facts, not opinion. Over the past 7.5 years, I have invested well over $3.5 million into properties in Bangor. I have purchased a vacant lot from the city along with a condemned property, which were causing neighbors' homes to be devalued. Each property I've developed or renovated are by far the nicest, most well-kept properties on their respective streets. From single-family homes to multifamily homes, I have made the worst houses on the street into the most desirable properties in their respective neighborhoods. As with all my renovations and developments, the replacement of my roof was never about money, but to enhance the beauty of what is left of Broadway and preserve the existing architecture. The GAF slate line, by definition, is a synthetic slate, mimicking the original roof, which was no longer salvageable. I then have here a letter from National General Insurance. It was dated January 22nd of 2025. It says, please be advised that a recent loss has brought to our attention the condition of the insurance roof. This roof is in poor condition and requires that the entire roof be replaced as soon as possible. The current condition of the roof can result in future losses. If the roof is not replaced prior to the renewal date, a non-renewal notice will be issued on the account. I also have a report here from New England Infrastructure. At your request, on January 17, 2025, an engineer and craftsman from New England Infrastructure of Hudson, Mass. Performed a site evaluation of your roof at 198 Broadway in Bangor, Maine. An inspection was carried out on both the house and barn roofs. Based on visual inspection alone, it is evident that numerous areas on both structures exist where the existing slate shingles are cracked, flaking, lifting, shifted, and missing. There are several areas where the soffits show signs of rotten separation. Trapped moisture will likely exacerbate further decay if not addressed. Our inspection indicates movement of the slate roofing is being caused by excessive deterioration of the slate shingles and the nails and fasteners holding the shingles in place. At the time of the inspection, we found water and ice built up in locations causing the shingles to lift off the sheathing. Rusted and deteriorating nails exist throughout the roof, which compromises the roof integrity. Representative locations on both structures were identified, exclusive of what appears to be recent repaired areas, and attempts made to remove shingles from each section to assess their current condition. In each instance, nearly every shingle split or splintered during careful removal. Based on the level of care taken to remove individual shingles, it is evident that aside from small previously repaired areas, the current slate roof shingles have deteriorated to a point where reuse is not an option. Based on our inspection, less than 5% of the existing material is salvageable, and that material was most likely installed during the many evident repair attempts made to the roof. Additionally, the current drip pans show evidence of incorrect repairs and appear to have exceeded their useful lifespan, which will ultimately allow water to penetrate the roof rakes and soffits throughout both roofs. We were unable to inspect the sheathing, but based on our inspection, it could be determined that deterioration of the current sheathing is underway. To prevent further significant damage, it is our recommendation that the existing roof material be removed in its entirety and replaced with new slate or asphalt shingles, along with proper waterproofing and flashing materials. Based on our assessment, time is of the essence to avoid and prevent further and potentially irreparable structural damage to your property. While a slate roof replacement can be done, it has become an economically adverse home roof system based on cost and home values. In keeping with historic values, which can be significant to many historical homes and communities in New England, the GAF slate line is an excellent replacement for alternative for slate. It allows the ease of installation and maintenance associated with asphalt roofing material while maintaining the look of real slate. By definition, the GAF slate line is meant to mimic the look of real slate, but offers the proven reliability of an architectural shingle. This product has been widely accepted, used, and praised throughout many historically sensitive areas in New England where the look of slate is warranted, but without the maintenance and cost associated with slate. GAF currently offers a 50-year transferable warranty on the slate line product, along with a 10-year workmanship warranty from NEI. Slate installation comes with a 10-year product warranty direct from the supplier, along with a 1-year workmanship warranty. On average, the cost of slate is roughly 4 times the cost of asphalt. The slate line material cost is approximately 15 to 20% more than a standard architectural shingle, but offers a slate-like appearance. Due to the condition of the existing roof and other unknowns, we are unable to provide a lump sum quote to replace your roof. The estimated cost of a full slate replacement of the roofs on your property at 198 Broadway would be somewhere between $220,000 and $260,000, based on current labor and material costs. Supply based on color would be attained prior to replacement. As stated previously, we recognize that many situations exist, especially with homes where slate installation is not economical. In response to your inquiry regarding synthetic slate, we do not work with and will not advocate for so-called synthetic slate, as it has been shown to be unable to withstand the harsh temperature and weather condition fluctuations of the Northeast and New England climate. We are currently scheduling asphalt roof replacements for late spring to summer of 2025, while a slate roof installation will be third quarter of 2026. Our slate roofing contractors are a small team of precise craftsmen and are typically booked out a year to a year and a half. Please review all of the information relative to the slate line product. Feel free to reach out with any questions or concerns you may have, and let us know if you would like a quote for an installation of the slate line product. So that's what I have. I was in a situation where it had been determined that my roof was completely beyond its usable life. It's 115 years old. It's estimated to last 75, and there was nothing left. Repairs were not possible by any means, and the insurance company also and their engineers made it perfectly clear that if I'm going to continue to have an insured home, the roof would have to be completely removed and replaced. And to do it in slate, not only is the cost quite a bit for a home that's appraised at $472,000 to then put 65, 70% of the home's value into a roof that does not increase the value of your home seems unreasonable.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Farren?
No, that's it.
Okay. Questions from the board?
I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah. So, Mr. Farren, at our meeting on January 2nd, many board members, myself included, were like tremendously sympathetic, I think, to your situation. But a majority, if I recall correctly, felt that you hadn't provided sufficient evidence to prove that you couldn't repair or replace your roof in conformity with city ordinances, right? And we're the Board of Appeals, so we're hearing an appeal from the HPC. So, and so in that instance, a majority of the board denied your appeal on the, not because I think the members were unsympathetic, but because you hadn't provided what the majority of the board felt was sufficient evidence for us to be able to, in conformity with our controlling bylaws, approve your appeal. So I guess my question is just why didn't you reapply for an appeal with a greater amount of evidence?
At that time, it was, I needed to schedule a roof, I couldn't wait any longer, that was getting worse and worse, and you could see it with every snowstorm, you could see it heaving more and more, and I was able to schedule a company, and I had to get it done. And I mean, it's unfortunate that I feel like I'm not here, but even that I had to go, that going before the HPC, put a target on my back, that I'm doing something, when every house around me has an asphalt roof, and the city has no reports. There are 3 that they were able to give me from the past 15 years of properties that applied and were approved for asphalt roofs. So it was, you know, it was one of those things, I just had to, but I had to get it done. But yeah, it's unfortunate that it seems by, you know, the old saying, ask for forgiveness, not permission, seems to be the way it goes. I find it hard to believe that a house very close to me last year, for 9 days, they had a roof completely stripped off. They took off a slate roof, replaced it with asphalt. 9 days. I could see that roof bare. Not one city councilor happened to notice that, but during a delivery in 20 minutes, 3 city councilors called in. That's a little hard to believe. So it seems, you know, if you think I'm a little bitter, then yes, I do feel like I'm now being attacked by somebody for just trying to protect my home. And protect, because if we don't, they will all be lost.
But you're saying that you didn't have time to reapply to the Board of Appeals or for a variance that HPC could grant with evidence that either the commission or the board would find persuasive, because the roof was you were going to lose your insurance in your home. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't, I've learned a lot about this process.
Right.
More than I really wanted to know. So at that point, I said, I'm just gonna do what everybody else does and just put a roof on it, hope for the best.
Okay.
Didn't go that well.
Other board members? Mr. Farren, I've got a question. As I view the procedural status of this case is, I ought to clarify this first, just so that this record is clear. You had your original application for the HPC, which was denied, which you then brought before us in January, and we voted not to overturn the decision of the HPC. After that, you did not reapply to the HPC for...
I did not.
Okay. So then, the only thing that's before us today is your appeal from the notice of violation.
Notice of violation, correct.
Because we don't have independent jurisdiction today to decide whether or not you meet the criteria for the issuance of a permit to put on the roof that you've put on your house. So my question for you is, as I see it, I mean, we have a very narrow issue to determine whether or not the notice of violation should be overturned. And in your application, you said that the basis of your appeal was error in the issuance of the notice of violation. So can you explain to us why you think the notice of violation was issued in error?
Well, for one reason, as I mentioned in the timeline here, the first asphalt shingle didn't go on until March 27th. The violation was issued on the 26th. So as far as, if I hadn't told Brenda, yes, I'm putting asphalt on, a violation hadn't occurred. I could have been putting slate back on, I could have been doing a massive repair from what they had seen at that point. So that's why that's a violation, an error in violation, that a violation was issued before a violation had technically occurred.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Farren.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the appeal? If you could just state your name and your address.
Certainly, my name is Scott Party, and I am a resident of Bangor. I own several properties in this city, a couple of which boast historic slate roofs. I'm here tonight to talk about something fundamental, a roof's purpose. It's there to protect a home from harms from the relentless assault of weather and other conditions. The houses I own with slate roofs date back to before the devastating fire of 1911. It's a well-known fact that many of the homes in Bangor that survived that inferno were subsequently fitted with slate roofs, precisely to protect these valuable structures from future calamities. Slate is undoubtedly a long-lasting product, a testament to its durability, but nothing, and I mean nothing, truly lasts forever. As I begin the long process of saving enough money to eventually replace my own aging slate roofs with modern, more practical asphalt shingles, I'm struck by the treatment of Mr. Farren in his efforts to simply save his house from the elements. Being in a historic district is in many ways a wonderful thing, a connection to our past, a beautiful aesthetic, unless, that is, you're trying to perform essential maintenance to actually save your home from decay. If there is a particular ordinance that mandates slate must be replaced with slate, then frankly, it needs to be updated. Mr. Farren isn't replacing intricate woodworking or fancy amenities at the expense of his home's integrity. He's replacing a roof to protect the very woodwork and those fine amenities. Think about it. The original shake roof on those homes were replaced with slate. It was done for the exact same reason, to protect the structure. Slate is, by today's standards, an outdated material. It's no longer used in new construction, and for good reason. No one, no one, I assure you, is going to look at Mr. Farren's home and consider it an eyesore because it doesn't have a slate roof. What would be an eyesore and a tragedy is a home damaged by a leaking roof because an owner was prevented from making a practical repair. I have unfortunately been before appeals boards in Bangor before. It's an incredibly uncomfortable and frankly intimidating experience. Sometimes common sense simply must rule over outdated ordinances. And believe me, I can name several outdated ordinances that still govern aspects of our city. I implore this board to use common sense. Please give the citizens of Bangor the time and space to adapt modern realities and to change these outdated ordinances that are, in effect, punishing property owners for trying to protect their most valuable assets. Thank you.
Hang on a second, Mr. Party. Any questions from the board? Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else speaking in favor of the application?
My name is Justin Cartier, no longer a member of this appeals board, I understand tonight. It's a little confusing to me, but I guess we'll get to that at another point. When I sat on the previous appeal on January 2nd for this instance, one of the things we didn't have was a written estimate, which he is providing for you at this time, $260,000 to replace a roof on a $400,000 home. It's exorbitant by anyone's standards. One thing the Constitution guarantees us is a right to life, liberty, and property. Mr. Farren defending the property from the raindrops destroying his home one at a time, I believe is within his constitutional right. Now, any law that is repugnant to the Constitution is void. So any rules that are made that contradict that should not be enforceable. Now, I understand we try to keep the integrity of our city, and like we've heard tonight from Mr. Party and Mr. Farren, many of these homes had started with cedar shakes, and even this property, Mr. Farren's from our last appeal we heard, they put slate over the top of it, which is probably one of the reasons it's starting to fail now. In my experience as a contractor, when replacing roofs that have cedar shingles as the lowest layer, they turn to dust. And I'm sure the cedar shingles exacerbated and sped up the demise of that roof. And just like the slate roof was an innovation over the cedar shakes, so are the asphalt shingles. The slate line, GAP slate line, are really the premium asphalt shingle in in the industry that does give it that slate appearance. And I understand you want to keep with the integrity for the historic preservation of but this is as close a product as you're going to find. And my next question is, who is going to do the slate roof? So he's found someone. We heard in our last presentation that the city has a list of names. So after our appeals hearing, I went to the counter over there and asked if I could get a list of the names of the slate roof people provided by the city. They weren't able to provide it for me that day. Anya Collette was not in the office. They said that she would get back to me. 3 days later, when I hadn't heard from her, I gave her a call and left a message. And then the following week, when I still hadn't heard back from her, I sent an email to the city councilors, and I got responses from 3 of them. Dan Tremble responded that the city does not keep those kind of lists. Council Chair Pelletier said that Anya Collette would have that list, and one other, Susan, not Susan Dean. One of the other councilwomen gave me a list of a couple different names that she had found online. The next day, Anya did give me a list of 3 names, no phone numbers or anything else, just names of 3 companies. Oddly enough, it's the same 3 that you would find if you Googled slate roof Bangor. Of those 3 companies that I called, none of them returned my phone calls. I did get to talk to one of them when Councilman Mallard gave them a call, because they do work on his home over on Essex Street, do the repairs, and he only will do repairs. He will not do a complete roof replacement. The other one was Hanel Brothers, and they were not taking on, when I did finally get to somebody, which nobody returned my calls, when I finally did go there and ask somebody, they said they're not taking on any slate roof projects at this time. And the third one was one that you had identified in your first presentation that excluded Roof Systems of Maine, and you'd given a presentation on one of your neighbors and the issues they had had. So my question to the council here, and I understand you're trying to hide behind the rules and regulations, and we're not here to hear an appeal for, this certain thing, but who is supposed to do his slate roof? If we're requiring a slate roof to be done, who's going to be doing it? There's nobody available to do them, which is why he's been forced to protect his property within his constitutional rights. And I hope you consider that today when you're considering your ruling on this. I don't know how we can hold the people of the city of Bangor to this kind of standard. There's no professionals for this kind of work in the area to get them done, other than one he's excluded because of poor craftsmanship, and another one who wouldn't remove himself as having a monopoly here in Bangor, even though his company is so busy doing work for the state that they don't have any time to do any slate roofs for residential anyways. But thank you for listening, I appreciate it. I hope to see you back on the board here soon, once I figure out why I was removed or my term expired.
Questions from any board members?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Anyone else want to speak in favor of the application?
Hi, my name is James Frost. I'm a resident in Bangor. I live on Grove Street here in town. I work at St. Joseph's Hospital, and for the past 13 years, I've made that walk from Grove Street down Broadway to the hospital, because it is so close. And over the years, I have got to know Mr. Farron just in passing. I've seen the work that he's done to the place. I've stopped and have conversations with him. And from those conversations, I just realized how much he actually cares about his home and the integrity of his property and the home. And it wasn't until recently when I started seeing things in the paper, I was like, wow, I know that guy. Like, I can't believe this is happening. I know he's a good guy. He cares about his home and his property, and he's only trying to just hold up to the standard of what you guys are asking for. That's really all I have to say.
Thank you. Questions by any board members? Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor of the application? Come on up.
Hi, Louis Morrison, live in Herman, but invest in Bangor. I kind of want to stand up, just the same thing. Mr. Farren, I met, I think probably 10, 15 years ago when he moved up here from Massachusetts, and I think he moved up here for a beautiful lady sitting beside him, but we've done a lot of work together over the years. And as an investor who tries to, buy properties, fix them up as best you can, I'm just gonna use dummy math because that's the way I work. If I have a $10,000 a month mortgage on a place, I try to make sure it brings in $10,002. So sometimes that can come with, not using the most, I shouldn't say the most reputable products, builders, et cetera, but doing what you can to make a property make sense. When I started to see some of Steve's work on properties, especially on 3rd Street, which nobody wanted to invest in, and it's very evident if you drive down 3rd Street, look to the right, you look to the left, you'll see maybe one of my properties, go, that's okay. You look to the left and you go, who in the hell did put that much money on 3rd Street? It's that guy right there. I've watched him invest millions and millions and millions of dollars, saving complete and absolute dumps in the city of Bangor, making great homes for people. I know that doesn't speak for his own property, but drive by it, you'll see this man cares a lot about properties and he knows what he's doing. When I started to see these articles in the paper, it made me absolutely sick to my stomach. But like Mr. Party said, where common sense is, pick up the paper every single day now, and we're reading about how much of the issues going on in the city of Bangor. It's upsetting as somebody that loves the city, somebody that loves to invest in the city, literally pick up our paper that's out this thin, and all you're reading about is how bad it is to be in Bangor. So thank you, Steve, and thank you, Smith Builders. You guys did an incredible job on that roof. By the way, he hired the best in the business to do what he did do, so.
Any questions from any board members? Thank you. Excuse me, does anyone else want to speak in favor of the application?
Hi there, my name's Darren Gould. I own Next Level Contracting in Bangor. I have built the 2 properties for Steve on Hammond Street, 486 Hammond Street, and 108 3rd Street. He just talked about it. He works hard to preserve the city. Sorry, I'm not a public speaker.
You're doing fine.
Yeah. And he takes a lot of pride in what he has. When we were building the property for him on 3rd Street, he was building that as an investment. And I kept reminding him, Steve, this is an investment and you want to make money on it. But he was overtaken with the quality of the build that he was putting out. So he ended up putting so much into the house that his return on investment wasn't there. So he still has the house. He built the house on Hammond Street, and he built it for more than he sold it for. Took a huge loss on it, trying to build up the city. I also do work for John Babs, and they own historical properties as well. One, for example, is 72 Broadway. We were hired to replace the farmer's porch on front with the really intricate balusters, handrails on the 2nd story. And we pulled permits through the city of Bangor. We followed all protocol, and their only requirements were that we replace it and make it look like it did. So we replaced these products, we made them ourselves, and we actually ordered the top post pieces online, and they're like a polymer infused, they're not real wood, but they'll last. to preserve the property. And again, this was all legitimate, and the permits were pulled, process was followed through the city of Bangor. City of Bangor did the inspections, passed with flying colors. So I don't see why he's being held to such a high standard, trying to respect the rules of the Historic Society by using a look-alike slate product that's more practical, it's lighter weight, easier on the home, and it's safer than if you lose a piece of slate off the roof and it hits you in the head. It's a safer product, it's a better product, it's 2025. Update what we're doing. That's all.
Thank you. Any questions by any board members? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Does, step right up.
I didn't know Mr. Farren until I met him tonight. but
You have to
I-
state your name for the record.
Oh, sorry. I'm Emily Ellis, and I live in Bangor. I actually had an old Victorian that I rehabbed, and I sold it for a lot less than what I had in it, I can tell you. But when you have an old building, you are the steward of that building for the time that you have it. So you want to make it as nice as you can. I think I feel for Steve because he played by the rules. Other people didn't, and so the playing field is not level. So there needs to be recourse for others, or common sense can enter the building and we will look at what he did, which he literally had nothing else that he could do, the way this played out. Insurance cancellation is no joke. If one insurance company cancels you, you're not gonna get insurance with any other ones. And if you do, then you're gonna pay probably 3 times what it should cost you. I mean, you lost me at the cost of the slate was $260,000. That is, it's amazing. Finding a contractor to do it just could not be done. That slate line, I did a drive-by. It changes nothing aesthetically. I think it looked beautiful. Unless you were really looking, you would never know that it wasn't slate. I think it's kind of interesting that the real preservation of history would be probably more accurately taken care of if there were cedar shakes put on that, because that was the original for that roof. I also question the future of homes in the historical district. Are they going to be saleable when the city can dictate to a private property owner a $260,000 bill? Maybe it's overstepping a bit the way that the regulations are. And I'm curious how the commission would respond to the other violations. And I think more than anything, we have a city that has these beautiful old homes. They have, a lot of them surpassed their useful life when their life started in the 1880s. I think a lot of people have taken a lot of pride, and I know he has, in keeping his house up. But in order to keep people doing exactly what he's doing, we need to make sure that we don't treat them the way that we're treating him. We hear all the time, how do we incentivize people to keep making investment in our city? Not like this. Thanks.
Questions by any board members? Thank you.
Well said.
Anyone else to speak in favor of the application?
Ted Murray, I'm a resident of Bangor, also one of the owners of Smith Builders. We did put the roof on for him. I urge you guys to drive by if you haven't. The product is as close to slate as you can get with a modern product. Really, I can't say much that other people haven't already said. Steve really does a great job maintaining his properties and hasn't tried to strip out any of the historical integrity and value in it. So I just think it's against the purpose of what they're trying to do. So I also want to just give you guys a chance to ask any questions in regards to the roof. So
Questions by board members? Thank you.
thanks.
Would anyone else like to speak in favor of the application? Hearing none.
Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to point out that there is an email in your packet from a Benjamin Sear who wanted to speak in favor of the application. We did so by submitting an email.
Thank you. So Dave, my question for you is, I can't remember the procedure. Do we ask for the city's position or do we ask for opponents next?
We typically ask for the city's position
That's what I thought.
and then
Thank you.
the rest.
Brenda?
Hi there, Brenda Hanscom, Water from Code Enforcement. I think Steve did a pretty good job of giving a timeline. I got a call March 21st, I think, indicating that shingles had been delivered to the property, so I gave him a call. And he indicated that that was his intent, to replace the shingles and then the situation with his insurance and all of that. We had a conversation about it and he asked me what would typically happen, and I indicated at that point that, you know, if the roof was replaced, I wouldn't have a choice but to issue a notice of violation. So I did go to the property early the next week, when I think I got another call that they were starting work, and when I went out there, Smith Builders was there, but the homeowner wasn't, so I left. And I did send a notice of violation to the property owner at that point. And that's essentially it.
Questions for Brenda?
So I have a question for Brenda. So Brenda, if he had come to you with the estimate and the insurance notification, would you be able to recommend he come back to the appeals board or back to HPC?
That wouldn't be something that I would speak to, that's outside my wheelhouse.
Okay.
Other questions? Brenda, I just want to make sure that I have the timeline correct. Because Mr. Farren indicated that he got the notice on the 26th, but the work started on the 27th.
Yeah, I think, for clarification there, the shingles were being stripped off, the slate was being removed when I went out to the site, but if he states that they didn't go on and, you know, any other shingles didn't go on until the next day, that's probably accurate.
Okay, but the work had started
Yes, they were taking the shingles off, or the slate off,
prior to the issuance of the notice?
correct.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Thank you. Would anyone like to speak in opposition to the application?
Full disclosure, Reese Perkins, she's my girlfriend. I don't wanna, I mean, I like that you're trying to narrow the issue here. I think that's important. I have been, for those of you that don't know me, I have been on boards in the city of Bangor for 15 years, 14, 15 years, including 6 years on the Historic Preservation Commission. We never let asphalt shingles be installed instead of slate. We just never did that. So I want to make that a correction. I have talked to several other chairpersons from the Historic Preservation Commission. They have never experienced that. I will also say that there was a time period, as Mr. Farren pointed out, the Historic Preservation Commission came into being sometime in the early 70s. I think you said 71, but early 70s. So there was a time period before that where there was no Historic Preservation Commission, and roofs could have been replaced at that point with something else, and there would have been no Historic Preservation Commission to make any difference whether a house was in the Historic Preservation area or district or not, which is potentially some of these houses that he sees around him that have had slate replaced with something other than slate. I would also like to mention that it's been said that the Historic Preservation Commission has used their own opinions to make decisions. This is the issue of the requirement of a roof being replaced with the original material is from the Green Book. There's a thing called the Green Book, which is the national book written by the Interior Department, which is like a code book. And it gives information on kind of the rules of the game of what you can do with a historic property. So if a house is in a historic property, the Historic Preservation Commission looks at the Green Book to guide them on what they are allowed to or what they can't do. Nobody's, I mean, you know, people are people, I get it, but the Green Book is what requires the material to be replaced with its own. I am a bit worried about the board members of the Historic Preservation Commission because if Mr. Farren wins, then what message does that send to the Historic Preservation Commission? You guys, as you know, you're volunteers from the community. You do this for free because you like the city of Bangor. You want to serve the city of Bangor in a useful way. And if their decision gets overturned, and in this case, I know we're just talking about the notice of violation, but if their decision gets overturned, you know, these folks put a lot of thought, a lot of effort. They actually get trained on the historic issues before they make decisions. It matters, and you'll find yourself not able to find people even willing to be on boards in the city of Bangor because of that, and that's a shame. I would also like to mention that we have a house that was built in 1859. It has the original slate shingles on that roof. We have, since we've owned this house, and we've owned it 13, 14 years, we have fixed those, some of the slate. Well, you know what happens with a slate roof, and anyone who has a slate roof knows this, is in the springtime after the snow melts, you look around on your lawn and see if there's slate on your lawn. And if you see a piece of slate, you know you've got an issue. There's a problem. There's something missing from your roof. And so, you know, we have taken the time to get a contractor, and there are contractors. We found a contractor this year. So it's not true that you can't find contractors. We got a contractor up onto our roof this year, and it's the third time since we've owned the home that we've had our slate replaced because I've had leaks. And it's not fun to have leaks, and you know, I don't want to do damage to the inside of my house. So I understand that it can be difficult to get contractors in today's world. I understand contractors are expensive, but it is possible to get someone to repair a slate roof. And for us, the costs were between $2,000 and $8,000, somewhere in that ballpark. Each time we did a repair. It was not out of this world, and that's on a house that was built in 1859. So it is possible to get these things fixed. Lastly, I'd just like to mention, Mr. Farren references New England Infrastructure, and New England Infrastructure out of Hudson, Massachusetts is a bridge and site work company. They're not specialists in slate. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Farren? Sorry, for Mr. Perkins?
That's fine. No offense.
Okay. Hearing none. Would anyone else like to speak in opposition to the application? Hearing none. Mr. Farren, do you have anything you'd like to present in rebuttal?
Well, I do, actually. Mr. Perkins just stated that the committee has never approved slate asphalt. On January 14th, 2021, 136 Broadway was approved. It says, "Thank you for your application for a certificate of appropriateness for a property addressed at 136 Broadway for removal and of deteriorated slate roofing and replacement with asphalt shingles. Your request was reviewed by the Historic Preservation Commission at the meeting of January 14, 2021, and approved at a special meeting held on January 28th. We have January 4th, 2017. After the fact replacement of slate roof shingles with synthetic slate shingles, Inspire brand, that was, I'm not seeing the address. That is 142, 144 Hammond Street. Another one, they approved removal of a slate roof and replacing with a metal roof. That was July 8th, 2010. These were the only ones when I contacted the city. I believe it was also Anya Collette. These were the only three the city had on record of anybody even applying. But I can tell you, and I understand that, but I can tell you that these houses that all have these roofs, as he's saying, before 1971, these roofs are not 50 and 55 years old now. 50-year shingles did not exist in 1971 or before that. So these houses have all had their roofs replaced, whether it was slate before or asphalt before. They've had it replaced. They were supposed to, again, go get a certificate of appropriateness. They have not done that. But these are three that I have here, where this one they actually approved a metal roof in replacement of the slate. So the city does, the Historic Preservation Commission has, in fact, approved asphalt in certain cases. And apparently just, unfortunately, looked the other way when other people did it. But I can tell you that just on Broadway alone, there are 13 houses with asphalt roofs. There are another 12 or 13 on West Broadway. None of these, the homes on West Broadway were built between 1860 and 1880, some even before that. None of them had asphalt roofs on them. They all had slate, and now more than half of them have asphalt roofs. So it's, I'm not, it's something that we need to figure out. I understand restrictions, certain things like that. Don't let me tear down my house and put up condos. I'm all for that, but let's preserve the houses. I have an example here. You can see this house here. It's beautiful. This is 113 Broadway. I don't know if anybody's familiar with 113 Broadway. This is what stands there now. I've lived on Broadway for 8 years. This building has looked this way for the past 8 years. This is not an old building. This was approved by the city, which means it was approved by Historic Preservation. This property that was originally there, the last owner of it, when it was like that, was Husson College. They turned it into dormitories. It became so neglected, they found that it was not worth at that time to repair it. So they left it. They abandoned the property. It was torn down, and Historic Preservation approved this in its place. We cannot sit here now and say that we're trying to preserve the history of a town when we allow that building that now 8 years later is still not complete. The siding, the stuff they put on before 8 years ago is already falling off of it. But this is allowed, and you're telling me I can't put an asphalt roof on my house? Come on. The city unfortunately failed in its mission to protect these homes when they were started in 1971. I'm not blaming one person in particular. The committee overall did not do its due diligence, did not protect it. I think they had good intentions, like I said before, but intentions don't get you anywhere. Now, the city is, if you drive down these streets, drive down Broadway, these houses are crumbling. There are multifamily homes that are just sitting, crumbling. They will, in a few years, those houses will not exist. There will be no way to salvage them. All I am doing is protecting my home, and I will do that at any cost. And that's where I'm gonna leave it. But you were incorrect, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, for getting back.
Sure. Mr. Farren, so those three examples that you found of the Historic Preservation Commission actually approving slate to asphalt
Yes.
Replacements, did you share those examples with the Historical Preservation Commission when you appeared before them?
No, I got those after.
So why didn't you approach the Historical Preservation Commission with those examples to get a certificate of appropriateness?
After my original dealing with historic preservation, I really didn't want anything to do with them, to be honest.
But can you understand then that if
I
you
do,
didn't
I
come back to
certainly
them?
do understand, but being in that room, when I stood before that committee, I could have told you, before I said a word, how that vote was gonna go. Then one of their committee members had his company do a presentation saying that asphalt is garbage. All you can do is slate. He pretended that different slate makes a different noise. It doesn't. You can hit anything with a hammer and get the same noise. That was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever seen. It was so biased, but he told those people to do that for job security for himself. Right there alone, it should have been thrown out. They asked amongst themselves if anybody had a problem with him voting. I stood there saying, I have a problem, hoping one of them would have spoken up and said, yes, you claim to be in this business. You can't vote on this, and no, you can't do a presentation today. I can tell you that their meeting before that I came to, a house 2 over from me, was looking to go from asphalt back to asphalt. I understand that's different. They already had asphalt. They approved it. So I said, all right, this is great. I know for a fact now that he was mad that they should have put it back to slate. They shouldn't approve the asphalt right away. He saw that another person is coming in, because I told them at that meeting my situation. I'm gonna have to replace mine, and I asked, any information they could give me. He then went to his company, waited to see that, and then he stood here in front of you guys and said he didn't know his company was coming. Come on, it's a company of 3 people. I think he knew his 2 partners were coming. So it was just, so that's the reason why I was not going in front of that committee again.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
Any other questions for Mr. Farren? Okay, thank you.
thank you.
With that, I will close the public portion of this hearing and open it up to the board members for discussion.
So what our decision is today is if the city was incorrect in issuing the notice of violation. Is that all we're discussing, approving today?
I'm going to look to Dave for guidance, but I'll tell you my view of this. The appeal is from the notice of violation issued to Mr. Farren. We have jurisdiction over the question of the notice of appeal, the notice of violation to determine whether or not it was issued in error. When we were here in January, considering Mr. Farren's appeal, the ordinance states that we take a de novo appeal from the Historic Preservation Commission, and we make our own decision based on the facts and the law before us. That's not where we are today. And like I said, Dave, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. The issue before us tonight is whether or not the code enforcement officer was in error to issue that notice of violation.
I don't disagree with anything that the chair just said. The standard of review in your ordinance, it's section 23-3F, states that the board shall apply the standard of review specifically set forth in the ordinance from which the appeal is taken. If an ordinance does not specifically set forth a different standard of review, the board may interpret the provisions of the ordinance which forms the basis of the appeal. That last time we were here, I interpreted that to mean that this would be a de novo review, because you can go into the ordinance and interpret it. That's not a particularly clear standard of review, in my opinion, but I think that we're looking into maybe making that more clear. But as far as it applies to this matter, we're talking about, he's appealed the notice of violation. And the notice of violation says that you are in violation because there's a certificate of appropriateness approval required under section 148.8 when there is an alteration of the exterior appearance of any building in a historic district, except as otherwise provided in section 148, 8B through D. So the question then becomes, can you get past the notice of violation and dig down back into the ordinance that's cited in the notice of violation? The notice of violation says itself, this violation can be abated by obtaining a certificate of appropriateness for the change in roof material or restoring to existing roof material. So this board reviewed last time the elements under the historic preservation ordinance. And that was on appeal from the historic preservation decision. Now it's on appeal from the notice of violation, which isn't as clear. I don't think the issue is clear. And the way Ed has described it is one of the interpretations that is a reasonable interpretation of the ordinance. Whether you think that you can get into those provisions of the ordinance, the historic preservation ordinance, is kind of a key decision that you have to make. Or whether this should have been brought back in front of the HPC. The last time you reviewed this, you looked at the exceptional circumstances of 148, 148E, which basically said that a certificate of appropriateness could be issued in the case of undue hardship that involved 3 elements. And you have to decide whether this standard of review allows you to get back into those elements of hardship. Either it's limited because of the way Ed described it, the chair described it, to there's notice of violation, there's no certificate of appropriateness. That is one way to interpret your standard of review. Another way would be there's the ordinance that's cited in the notice of violation, and can you get back down into those elements? And unfortunately, I'm not going to be particularly helpful because I find it to be unclear, a gray area. It could be interpreted one way or possibly the other as well.
So another question I have. So it says if you obtain a certificate of appropriateness from HPC, so the documentation that we have here that was provided, HPC didn't have. And so if you go back to HPC and you give them what the insurance company did, what the report was, also if he has documentation that they approved as shingles from slate to asphalt before, present that.
Right.
And get them to make that decision. Because if it's a financial hardship, I'm pretty sure you can get an exception.
The applicant has certainly presented compelling new evidence that he didn't have both at the time of his first presentation to the HPC, nor did he have it at the time of his first presentation in front of the Board of Appeals, which was a new trial, a de novo review. That is compelling new evidence. The question is, can you hear it and direct the planning officer to issue a certificate of appropriateness as you would have under the first appeal?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting issue, because the code enforcement officer does not have the authority to issue the certificate of appropriateness. That's going to come from the HPC, right?
Well, you
Typically.
but then an appeal to the Board of Appeals.
Right.
That's another way it could be issued. Yeah.
Understood.
What is this? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I have some broader thoughts that maybe we'll get into as we talk about this, but just sort of philosophically, I think, as a Board of Appeals, my own take is that our authority ought to be quite narrow.
Yeah.
We have ordinances and statutes and committees that are designed to deal with these things. And so our charge is to be there to respond when those organizations or that structure fails or doesn't meet the needs of a specific case. And our authority is pretty well articulated, I think, narrowly. So the way I read this is similar to how Ed described it. The action that is being appealed is a notice of violation, which seems to me to mean that the question before us is whether that notice of violation was issued in error. And it doesn't seem to me to be that it was issued in error if there was not a certificate issued by historical preservation. Can I ask a quick question, David?
Sure.
Is there anything preventing the applicant from returning to historical preservation?
No.
To your knowledge, okay.
No. And just to go one step further, if the applicant presented the new evidence to the HPC and it was denied, I don't think there'd be any question that you'd have jurisdiction at that point.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Review.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of their second decision.
On the other hand, I mean, could we just decide that a certificate of appropriateness isn't even necessary? See, like if we determine that the replacement product so resembles the slate original, right? That there isn't actually like a significant alteration of appearance such that the Historical Preservation Commission's authority is triggered, right?
I don't think that's a fair interpretation. I think even under the hardship element, it says that a certificate of appropriateness may issue where the standards otherwise set are not met, but where it is determined that failure to issue the certificate would result in undue hardship. So if the elements are met, and you had voted last time that 2 out of those 3 elements were met, and my recollection was that the one element, the vote I think was 3-2 that it was not met. But if those are met, then a certificate of appropriateness is supposed to then be issued. Not that it wasn't needed, but that it should be issued. And the requirement for the certificate of appropriateness is located in section 148.8 that says the alteration of the exterior appearance of any building in a historic district. And I think this replacement of the roof of a building in the historic district is unquestionably an alteration of the building if you're replacing its roof.
Right, okay.
Other discussion? Okay, I have a few comments. I've always viewed my role on this board, I often describe myself as a process guy, that I want to make sure that any applicant that comes before us is treated the same way as the next applicant that would come before us with the same issue. And the way that we can do that is if there's a process in place that guides us regarding how we make our decisions. So what we're looking at here is there's a set of ordinances that spell out the process that we need to follow in every case, and particularly in this case. And what that process says is that, well, we're here today on an appeal from a notice of violation issued by the code enforcement officer. So let me back up and look at the timeline and look at process issues before Brenda issued that notice of violation. Mr. Farren originally went to the Historic Preservation Commission. He asked for a certificate of appropriateness. The HPC turned him down. He came before us. We looked at the issue de novo, and we had a split decision. I remember I was one of the board members that felt that his appeal should have been granted and that he should have been given, was it a variance? In any event, I thought that his application should have been granted. A majority of the board disagreed with me and upheld the decision of the HPC. Mr. Farren had options at that point in time. He had the right to appeal that decision to the Superior Court. He has brought a number of issues before us, including whether or not the HPC was biased and unfairly considered his application. He had the option of making those arguments in an appeal to the Superior Court, which for whatever reason he chose not to do. That decision then became final, and he didn't have a certificate of appropriateness to do the work on the roof. He had a second option after circumstances changed. He got the letter from his insurance company, which was issued not long after our decision. It basically said, fix the roof or we're not going to insure your property. That's an additional hardship issue that he could have then taken back to the HPC and said, look, circumstances have changed. I think I'm entitled to a certificate of appropriateness. And if the HPC denied that for whatever reason, the issue would have come back before us, and we would have again had an opportunity to review the circumstances de novo and look at all of the evidence and make our decision based on whatever facts Mr. Farren presented to us in that hypothetical appeal from the HPC, and the law that governs what we do. He chose not to follow that course and instead decided to take self-help and act on his own. You know, we've heard, there've been a lot of persuasive arguments that have been made tonight that the situation that Mr. Farren's looking at is not fair, it's wrong, it doesn't make sense. The ordinances are out of date, they don't work, they don't reflect reality. And those may all well be valid arguments, but they're not arguments to be made to us as an appeals board. If the ordinances are not fair or correct, he had two options. Number one, challenge him in Superior Court, or you can go back to the City Council and say, we need to change this, and this is why. None of those are decisions that we can make tonight. We can't change the ordinances that we interpret and act on. We're not hiding under those ordinances. We're standing on them. We stand on the ordinances, we stand on state law, and we stand on both the state and federal constitutions in making our decision. And what ordinances we're looking at tonight is whether or not the code enforcement officer correctly issued a notice of violation. And it's clear that, number one, the ordinance requires a certificate of appropriateness. And number two, that Mr. Farren doesn't have the certificate of appropriateness. And three, that work had been done on his property without acquiring the certificate of appropriateness that our ordinances require him to have. And, you know, we live, and I'm going to get on my soapbox now, but, you know, we live in really difficult times. And as a society, there are a lot of challenges to authority and challenges to the rule of law. But we are a society, unlike many other societies in the world, that our bedrock foundation is the rule of law. And we as individuals cannot decide on our own which laws we choose to follow and which laws we choose not to follow. There's a process, well, multiple processes that are in place here that Mr. Farren could have followed, but he, for whatever reason, in whatever sympathy that we may have for the difficult position that he finds himself in. He chose not to follow those processes that our laws require him to follow. So, I mean, in my mind, and this is just my opinion as one board member, the certificate was required, the certificate was not obtained, and the work was performed without the appropriate authority. And I think those are the only issues that we have before us tonight. And I know I've been on my soapbox here for a while, so I want to open it up to board members if they have any other comments or discussion.
I have a question for Brenda. I don't know if you can, if it's appropriate to ask.
Sure.
So what's the procedure? I mean, if the board doesn't overturn the notice of violation, then what are sort of next steps that the city takes to enforce the code violation here?
So that would be above my office to make that decision at that point?
Procedurally, if a notice of violation is not bring about an abatement of the violation, the potential would be to try to enforce in court. There would, also the possibility of resolving it by way of administrative consent agreement without going to court. Yeah.
And could Mr. Farren apply for a stay of enforcement pending reapplication to obtain a certificate of appropriateness from the HPC?
That's not something that our office has the ability to grant.
Okay.
There could be a recommendation made that if Mr. Farren goes to the HPC, that the city not go further until the matter is decided upon.
So, Rob, let me follow up on your question. So, if we're to uphold your decision, and Mr. Farren were to come to the city, whether it be you or solicitor's office or whoever the appropriate authority in the city, and say, look, I'm going to reapply before the HPC, can you hold off on any enforcement actions? And probably this is a question for both of you. As a matter of prosecutorial discretion, could the city say, well, we'll wait to see and let you follow that
I think that's
process?
that's something that we're always willing to work with people. Our goal is to have people be in compliance. So if someone indicates that, that they're going to, do what they're supposed to do or, apply for whatever they need, then yeah, that's our position to work with them to do so.
Okay.
Yes.
And my answer would also be yes to that.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for me?
No, for me.
Thanks. Other questions or discussion?
I think I'll just quickly say that I think, Ed, I agree with your interpretation, and I would also call myself a process person. And I think part of the importance of that is predictability for future cases. And I think part of what we've heard is that in historical instances, maybe there wasn't consistency. And I think deviating from that now doesn't serve, I think, the goals that a lot of people want, which is predictability. And I think, with the narrow scope that I agree, Jordan, as you were saying, that the Board of Appeals has, I think for those two reasons, I think the narrower interpretation of, it's the notice of violation, and I won't reiterate everything you said, Ed. So I guess I just wanted to echo that sentiment.
Other comments or questions?
I mean, I just want to say for my part, I'm tremendously sympathetic to Mr. Farren's situation. It's clearly a predicament that ought to be on the radar of City Council. But I do think that the appropriate venue to resolve these issues isn't the Board of Appeals, unless, I think if all this came before us on January 2nd, I think we'd have a clear, I mean, we were already split with much less, a much less compelling case on January 2nd. And I think clearly Mr. Farren's case, I think clearly there is an administrative route he can take here to avoid having an enforcement action taken against him, even if we decide that it's not in our jurisdiction or in our authority to overturn the notice of violation from the city tonight. So, I do just want to state my position as one of sympathy for Mr. Farren's situation. I think any homeowner who found themselves in that position would be ripping their hair out. It's obviously very frustrating and scary. A $250,000 bill that the city seems to be enforcing against them. So, as important as like processes and consistency is, clearly there's a problem with this particular issue that is going to be replicated again and again and again unless it's resolved. So I do think that as like concerned citizens, maybe not as board members necessarily, but as concerned citizens, that's something that we all in this room are going to need to try to fix.
Other questions or discussion?
At the risk of climbing up on the soapbox with you, I agree with you, Rob. I have a lot of sympathy for this situation. I was really inspired by a lot of folks' comments about the sort of community pillar that our applicant represents. And I really appreciate the idea of approaching this, trying to do the right thing under the law from the beginning. And I think that the applicant has the opportunity to continue that example. And I think that when ordinances and enforcement work right, they are really designed to reduce the risk of persecution and unfair treatment. And in the world outside this room, in my professional life, I'm a social psychologist and I study how people disagree. I study prejudice and discrimination, and I know how easy it is to feel like the people that you're disagreeing with are targeting you, or villains, are those sorts of things. When in reality, most of the time, it's two different groups of people trying to do their best to navigate a complex situation. And that's sort of where I find myself here, is that, this is a really difficult and sort of tricky situation. And I think the answer in those situations is to follow the letter of our guidance and of the ordinance to do it in the right way so that everybody knows what that path is.
Any further comments or discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion.
I move to deny the appeal of the notice of violation.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Wow.
And it's unanimous. Thank you, everybody, for your comments and your discussion. The last item on the agenda is other business. Does anyone have any other business to bring before the Board of Appeals? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to.
Second?
Second?
All those in favor, say aye.
I'd like to say one more thing. I've now paid this city $1,100 in HPC fees, appeal fees. I submitted this information that my insurance company did all this at the time of my appeal. The city has now had this for a month. Why now am I being told you guys can't make a decision? That decision, they should have said, you have to go before them because we cannot make this decision. This is ridiculous.
You broke the rules.
I understand I broke the rules, but I did what they said to appeal it. So I appealed it. They should have said, no, you can't go to that. Don't just say, we'll take your $500. We're gonna try to make a mock of you by contacting every news outlet in the area to put articles about you in the paper.
None of us are responsible.
I understand that's not, but somebody from the city should have said, well, he's going, guide people, we're just citizens. We don't know how all of this process works. I've learned way more than I want to, and I learned more tonight. If I was going about it the wrong way, the city should have said, we're not gonna take your money right now, you're going about it the wrong way. You need to go back to this committee, or you need to do this.
Problem is, Steve, they don't have
Mi-
a clue. They
Mr.
don't
Fair,
have a
Mr.
clue what
Fair,
they're
we've
doing.
made our decision. That-
I understand. I guess I will see the city in court. Have a good night.
They'll have an army behind you.
Any other business to come before the board?
You guys are such a joke.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Ed.
We still
Thank you, Ed.
broadcasting?
Yeah, and well said.
Yeah. Look, I know I'm a lawyer, so my advice is always gonna be get a lawyer, but my advice is really good.
Yeah.
I'm just a really good lawyer.